Hi everyone. Today we'll present our paper eKichabi version 2, Designing and Scaling a Dual Platform Technology in Rural Tanzania. Tanzania is 65% rural and 80% of adults are smallholder farmers. We heard several stories during our scoping fieldwork in May 2022 of farmers feeling highly vulnerable to information friction. For example, a widowed subsistence farmer told us that she routinely relied on a transporter to drive through her village and buy her surplus harvest. This was her only way to get cash for her to use in the formal economy. Lacking connections to alternative transporters and being located far from the market, she had no avenues to sell her goods if the transporter chose not to come by. When he did come by, she didn't have any leverage to negotiate with him and often received unfairly low prices for her goods. Although she had owned a feature phone for many years, her only contacts were of her children that lived in the capital city. Prior work on phone directories by our collaborators in economics shows the potential to provide access to much needed agricultural contact information, benefiting farmers greatly.
Prior work, including the previous eKichabi paper by Weld et al., have demonstrated the feasibility of USSD-based phone directories at smaller scales. Smartphone apps have been rising in popularity in Sub-Saharan Africa and are projected to make up 61% of connections by 2025. They have several affordances such as larger, more readable displays, graphical user interfaces, and more that make them appealing for designing these services. Currently, the choice is between smartphone apps and these affordances and USSD apps, which have ubiquitous access among the majority of users. The downsides of USSD over smartphone apps include the text-based UI and hard 160-character limits, which makes it difficult to navigate larger blobs of text and information. The design and implementation of dual platform technologies, that is, technologies with versions designed for and accessible to both smartphone and feature phone users, has unique challenges and has been overlooked in literature. We conduct a service to characterize the technology use practices in Kagera, design and implement a dual platform technology, and conduct an intermediation pilot for low comfort feature phone users.
With the support of collaborators, we surveyed 1,014 households on their technology use practices across Kagera. In addition, we surveyed 10,000 firms for their business details to include in our business directory. Despite high projections of smartphone penetration across Tanzania, we found extremely low smartphone penetration of 7%, a large minority of USSD non-users, diverse comfort in USSD varying with age and gender, as well as 53% of households reporting needing help with their mobile phone at least on occasion, and referring to the use of mobile money agents as technology intermediaries that they look to for support. In order to create a dual platform directory to serve both USSD users that may only have a smartphone and smartphone users that can access an Android application with its variety of affordances, we created a USSD application where users dial a shortcode directly from their feature phone to access our directory service through their mobile network operator. Smartphone users can reach the same server through the Android application downloadable through the Google Play Store.
One consideration when scaling USSD to large amounts of users and larger amounts of data in the directory is the 160-character limit on USSD. When asked whether having multiple screens in a shortcut application deters their use, 46.4% of users in our testing groups agreed. This runs smack into the wall of the 160-character limit because you can't have few character screens and few screens at the same time when presenting lots of data in the thousands of businesses. It is important to make sure it is easy to filter results down to a manageable size quickly. We also found in our user testing and design phase that USSD at scale is more easily adapted to mobile money transaction than information access, explicitly due to the need for lots of information in an information access service. One thing we did to design around the character limits was reorganizing our text search. We added more subcategories to enable narrowing down results for display on smaller screens and implemented a way to filter search results by keyword and location. These also helped spelling issues among users. Another thing we found when scaling is that performance really matters. The problem we faced was that the original app caused mobile network operator implemented session timeouts. And while user testing, we also found it extremely important for users to be able to quickly retry their searches. What we did was a bunch of optimizations in terms of serialization, caching, changing the architecture. And this brought down the search from 5+ minutes, which times out on most mobile networks, and then down to 100 milliseconds with an average of 7,000 times speed up. Another thing we saw was network reliability issues among USSD applications, with large periods of times in certain regions where they had no way to actually use USSD or any other form of mobile network. Tooling choice recommendations we can provide go with a more well-known gateway for USSD, something like Africa's Talking, or better yet, Twilio. Our choice of Near-Fiqre had non-standard request headers, used non-standard and non-documented things, and had missing features that made things hard. All right, so analyzing the 1,000 households, they had around 3,000 sessions where we saw that gender did not predict the usage, despite predicting how comfortable people were with technology. We also found no peri-urban versus rural split in terms of which regions using the application not correlating with how much they used it. And then usage, on the other hand, did differ significantly across different times, suggesting that seasonal farming practices had a high impact on directory access. On the right, you can see a screenshot of the welcome screen USSD application. It has 3 search options and a 4th option for a help screen. And then you can view our paper for more detailed results and discussion.
Users had Wi-Fi in their village centers, but not in their homes. And these connection challenges meant that developing the Android application faced challenges. It had to be functional offline after download, and we could not have the Android app fall back to USSD when the internet was poor, as the Android operating system support was limited and the USSD gateway would not accept initial payloads. We created an offline copy of our database compressed to 1.8 megabytes and the app made efficient updates from the server when connected to the network, in case any business information changed. The total size of our application was 6.73 megabytes, which cost 67 Tanzanian shillings or 2 cents in US dollars to download. .9% of smartphone owners preferred Android over USSD during testing, citing the affordances. For example, the Android app showed all the businesses on the landing screen immediately, as you can see on the right of the screen. However, 50% of smartphone users only exclusively used USSD during the final deployment. Through some qualitative feedback, we understood that this was due to data costs. USSD is understood to be free, while Android applications cost data to download. There was an overall preference for USSD by both smartphone and feature phone users, mirroring literature in the financial services sector, which finds that smartphone users prefer USSD and that we need to incentivize downloading Android applications in smartphone owners. Overall, we had 42 active Android users who leveraged the functionality added by the touchscreen and the Android app's affordances.
Looking at the comparative use between Android and USSD, we saw that Android use was more complex and Android users showed a higher retention of coming back different times for more information. One thing to note is that even though we have 22 actions per Android user versus 42 inputs per active USSD user, is that an Android action actually provides a lot more information than a USSD action, with each USSD input corresponding to about 5 to 8 inputs to actually get to some business information, whereas the Android application, as seen in the previous slides, shows all the information immediately without any actions having to be taken. And then what this shows is that there's still significant room for dual interventions as the technology landscape continues to grow in Sub-Saharan Africa. and it kind of incentivizes the initial motive that Android use is more complex, meaning users get more out of it, whereas the user base is still a lot smaller for Android. All right. Looking to bridge the gap between feature phone owners and use of technology, we conducted an intermediation pilot where we sampled some of the 31 households in the lower comfort group who didn't already claim they knew exactly how to use USSD, and spread in different villages with 10 different wokalas, where these wokalas, also known as in local term as mobile money agents, would help them use the app and show them how to use it. We saw that they showed great interest and capability to engage these feature phone owners and further trust. About 90% of wokalas sent the initial text offering help, and 30% of households met with their wakala in person, whereas more called than text. Wakalas are highly tied to credibility and trust. 70% of questions were about how to use the app, specifically about trustworthiness, and most households extended their trust in wakalas to trust in the app. Some wakalas did report that some users thought we were thieves. One interesting thing is that we had a lot of non-whitelisted interest where people not in our study would contact the wakalas to hear more about the application, which shows the integral role of wakalas in the community as like a point of contact for technology.
Text message and USSD-based scams are becoming commonplace in Sub-Saharan Africa, to the extent that one user tester asked us, "What if I find a transporter through your directory and he kills me?" User testing showed improvements in trust based on improved initial training with clear motivations, listing how the business information was gathered and disseminated. Further, the addition of the business owner name to the final business screen and the inclusion of a disclaimer stating to still verify identities when possible both impacted trust positively. Thank you so much to our collaborators at Cornell, EDI Global, and IRDP for making this possible. Please scan our QR code for our paper and reach out with any questions you may have.